Hello? If you are Dave Ramsey or a Dave Ramsey stan, probably don't want to watch this video because this is the coveted financial update of medical school. I apologize for the mess in the back. We're approaching exams. I realize that if you're an incoming M1, you've already taken out loans for this year, and if you are anything above that, you have done this before. So this video might not be super helpful at this point in time, but I'm hoping that like next year it picks up speed again. This is sort of, I'm going to talk about my budget for medical school, what has changed from my advice before, and sort of like what my spending looks like month to month, because that has changed from my original like thoughts at the beginning. This is not financial advice rooted in a finance degree. This is not financial advice rooted in like 100% truth, and it's, take it with a grain of salt, change it to your lifestyle. I'm going to share my thoughts on how what I recommended in my last finances video like didn't work for me and how it did work for me and what I'm doing differently this year. So a lot of you have asked for this. It's coming at a weird time. I apologize. Med school has been busy. To summarize sort of what I recommended last time, I took out the very least amount of money that I could. I have a little bit of a scholarship. I calculated exactly how much rent I would be paying, pretty close to exactly how much I would be paying for utilities, give or take a couple dollars. I had a pretty like low grocery budget, low fun spending budget, like kept everything really nice and tight, which is awesome, except for what I did not expect is that there are a lot of things in medical school, mental wellness wise, that like money can fix. And it's not worth it to me to be stressing about money, or to be like, I actually can't go out to eat with you once a week because I only budgeted once a month, and so that's not gonna work for me. The reality of it is, unless you are on a full tuition scholarship and you have a ton of money saved up beforehand, you will be in some sort of debt when you get out of medical school. And the difference between like taking out an extra $1,000 each year to like enjoy yourself a little bit, or taking out a little bit of extra money to have a slightly nicer place in a better neighborhood that's a little bit closer to campus, like those things make a difference on your wellness, like your well-being as a person. I would say health, like physical health, mental health, emotional well-being, those sorts of things like are all impacted by your environment. So I have changed stances. I will say that the apartment I was in before was the cheapest I could find, and I think that it had a lot of like negative impacts on my health. There was like cockroaches and mold problems, and it was sort of in an area where there's lots of pollution, and I didn't realize that I was like not feeling very well until I moved here, and my like physical body feels better. I have more energy. I'm not like coughing and sneezing as much. There are not cockroaches running around, knock on wood. You get what you pay for, and sometimes you have to pay more for things that are good for you. I would also say, as far as apartments go, I would recommend like living close to campus, not because you can't drive, not because that's not something you're able to do, but something that like you need to get to know your classmates. It's good to have community. It's nice to be able to like pop over to somebody's house and then come back. It's nice to not take an hour trip to Target, because that's how long it took me to go, so I never went, and Target makes me happy. So these are things that you should consider when thinking about like how much money you're going to be spending on an apartment, or how much money you're going to be spending on utilities and those sorts of things. I would err on the side of like meet in the middle. You don't need the nicest apartment in the world. You don't need the cheapest apartment. I would go somewhere like in the middle. So I am paying $500 a month more for rent this year, and I'm okay with that. It's okay, because I feel better. I feel a lot better, and I feel safe, and all these things like contribute to your success in medical school, so I think those are things to consider. Furthermore, I have budgeted more money for fun, more money for food, more money for like personal spending a month, and this is not to say that I have to spend it all. What's nice about loans is if you don't use them all, you can give it back at the end and be like, just kidding, I didn't use this, or you can take out less the next year. Again, this goes back to sort of like mental wellness stress and not depriving yourself of things. You will learn when you are in medical school that like this is a stress that you maybe haven't experienced before. As somebody who has like personally experienced like traumas and has gone through multiple things of school and has worked a job where I worked 80 hours a week, like medical school is a different kind of stress, and depriving yourself of things is a lot harder, and it just is not necessary to some degree in medical school. Like, I think it's okay for you to buy yourself something nice once a month. That's my opinion. Like I said, Dave Ramsey's not gonna wanna hear this. He really isn't. This is not me saying that you should be just like blowing money left and right, but this is me saying that like deprivation is going to have impacts on you and your ability to be successful in medical school. And that's the whole reason you're here. And if you're not successful, you're not gonna be able to pay the loans off. So ultimately, it all comes full circle. That's just sort of like a summary of like what's changed, what's different this year. I wanna take you through sort of like how I budgeted, just so that you have sort of an idea of like how to build your budget or what to change next year, or if you're watching this at an appropriate time before you've taken loans out, congratulations. I did not time this well. So for rent, that's something that you know. I think a good way to set up a budget is to take the things that you know are gonna happen at the same price every month. So this is gonna be like your rent. This is gonna be your like subscriptions, like if you have Spotify or Hulu or whatever, what have you. Those things happen the same amount every single month. This could be like your renter's insurance or something like that. Things that are gonna change every month would be in a different category, and we can sort of talk about those. But things that, for me, this is how much I have to spend on it, is rent. I gave myself exactly the amount that I needed for rent. Utilities, I took what I paid beforehand. I live by myself, so I'm not splitting utilities with anybody. I took what I paid beforehand and I added like $75 to it. And I feel like this is a good rule of thumb anywhere you live, is like how much you expect to pay and then add money to it, because there are gonna be some times where like your toilet runs overnight or you have a leak or something and your water bill is a little higher than you expected it to be, and it would be bad for you to run out of money and not be able to pay your water bill. So I would, when you're budgeting for that and thinking about how much loans you wanna take out or how much money you're gonna spend there, like add some buffer just so you're not stressed about it. Same with gas. I budgeted a lot more money for gas than I actually need, which is awesome because I live super close now, but I will be traveling home. And so there will be some months where it's more expensive and some months where it's less expensive, but subscriptions, obviously that's a recurring cost that happens all the time. So some things that will like vary on how much I spend on them, but that I have like allotted money to, is utilities, groceries, gas, and like fun stuff. I have a fun category. So my utilities, I added like quite a bit of money because I'm in a new area. I don't know how much it costs here. Groceries, I gave myself $200 for. I don't always spend this much money. It seems like a lot. I don't always spend this much money on myself for groceries, but sometimes I do. So it evens out throughout the months. Like if I want to eat something a little nicer, or if I want to like bake a cake and I need to buy flour and sugar and all the different ingredients, like that's expensive to get like the startup cost of baking a cake. So that's my budget. And then for gas, I gave myself $100 a month. I'm barely filling up like once every 2 weeks right now, which is amazing. And gas is expensive, so keep that in mind. So if you live a little further away, you're gonna adjust your gas needs for that. I gave myself $200 for fun a month, which is like a lot. So I won't spend it all, and I can give money back to the government at the end of this if I need to. But if there's a month that I'm like, hey, I wanna buy this thing for my house, or I need to fix this up, or what have you, like I have money to do that. I have the flexibility in my budget to do stuff like that. So I have a chair coming in that costs a little bit more than my fun budget. And so like there will be months that I don't spend a ton of money on fun, and it will even out throughout the year. So those are things to keep in mind. It's not like, oh, well, I only spend like $10 a month on such and such, and so I only will budget $10 for that. Like there are things you don't expect to want or to need or to consider fun that you might want to budget for. Some other things to think about when you're thinking about like budgeting would be like one-time costs that you'll have. So you're gonna have money taken out of your loans as like a service charge. I don't know what that means. I don't know why it costs like 7% of my loans for you to service it, but there's a service charge on your loans. So you'll have to take more out than the exact number that you need so that the service charge taken out of it is what you need. There's also things like if you have to pay for parking, or you need a parking pass, that's like $500 here. You need to budget for that like $500. So my recommendation is add a lump sum of money sort of around how much you think those one-time costs are gonna be, maybe more. My lump sum this year was like pretty large just because I am in a new place. I don't know what I need. I don't know how much my life is gonna cost this year. So I added $5,000 as a lump sum, like extra for the whole year. I don't anticipate needing to spend all of that, but my car tried to break down this month. I moved into a new place. I don't know. And it's not worth the stress to be worrying about whatever could happen in the world. Just to know that like I'm gonna be able to handle it if it comes my way. I also, just as a disclaimer, like do have money saved up, and I do have a plan for using that money so that I don't have a ton of like interest building up on the side. However, this is just my general recommendation, or like my evaluation of my experience, is like being stressed about money is not worth it in medical school. So take home from this is like meeting in the middle of like your bare minimum budget and like balling out is probably gonna be good for you. It's at least good for me as far as like your success and your well-being goes in medical school. So then I calculated my monthly living expenses, multiplied that by 12 to get my annual living expenses. I added my annual living expenses with that wiggle room added in to my tuition to figure out how much bare minimum I needed. To that number, I added my lump sum of like, who knows what's gonna happen, of $5,000 to that number. I subtracted my scholarship and any money that I had saved for this purpose to figure out how much money I was gonna take out in loans. And I can post this like algorithm that I use, like my reasoning skills, if you need it. Like it's pretty basic, but if you want to do the AllieBonBon method, it is in the description in like written language because I went through that pretty quickly. And then my other recommendation, if you're not familiar with loans, you should absolutely read about them because this is like a big purchase, I guess, to take out this much money in loans. But generally speaking, like unsubsidized loans have lower interest rates and grad plus loans have higher interest rates. And so what I did was I took out as much money as I could in the unsubsidized loan and then the least amount of money I could in the grad plus because there are differences in interest rates. That's it. That's the update. You can catch me balling out a little bit more this year just because I can. I have prioritized wellness and deprioritized Dave Ramsey. I'm really sorry, my friend, but it's just not applicable. It's not applicable here. I'm sorry, it just isn't. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this was helpful, even though it was at the wrong time. If you're watching this at the correct time, thank you. Let me know if you have more questions. I know some of you have wanted to see like grocery hauls and those sorts of things. So I'm happy to accommodate in any way that you think is helpful. Until next time, I'll see you later. Happy spending. Bye.